Did you know that your runner, your avoidant, was meant to make you heal, but only if you let them? And we can only allow the healing to take place once we see how we ourselves are preventing ourselves from healing, from integrating, instead of projecting this dynamic on our outer world. So, what is it that we actually do to prevent the healing to take place? Well, one thing we might be doing is judging them. And what happens is when we judge someone, we want to make them wrong, and therefore we're doing that to protect ourselves from feeling pain. And therefore, if we don't want to feel the pain, we don't want to accept it, and then we don't want to integrate it, and then we cannot release it, and therefore we cannot experience any change, and therefore we're stuck in a loop. And in order to stop judging them, we would not be able to just stop judging them. What we could do instead is wanting to judge them. And in the moment we judge them, we catch ourselves there and bring presence in our body. So once we make it about wanting to judge them, because look, it's very simple, even if we don't want to judge them, subconsciously, our defense mechanism is to protect ourselves from feeling pain. So even on the conscious level, if we decide we're not going to judge them again, we're going to be judging them this time, and we won't be able to actually see us or hear us in the moment that we're judging them. You see, the subconscious works in an amazing way. Once we are not wanting to engage in our defense mechanisms, well, they are suppressed in the subconscious and they're still playing out. The only way to meet our subconscious is to want what is happening subconsciously. That way, it feels safe to be seen, because once we want it, we're validating it instead of invalidating that part of ourselves. And so it feels safe and it comes up. So wanting to judge them means being aware that we are, that's the first one, accepting it. And then when we want to be judging them, that means we want to be there for ourselves the moment our defense mechanisms kick in. Because in that moment, what we're actually doing, we think we're judging them. What we're actually doing is protecting ourselves from feeling the pain of hurt, of, being rejected, being abandoned. So making them wrong is actually a defense mechanism to avoid feeling abandoned and rejected. Making them wrong actually is also a way to create a wall, a barrier, a distance from our specific person, our twin flame. And we may be thinking that we're wanting them to be close, but if we are judging them for hurting us or for not giving us love, we're actually creating a bigger distance between us. So in order to close the gap between us and our specific person, we would want to actually catch ourselves in the moment that we're judging them. And in that moment, bring presence within our body and be here with our inner child, because our inner child is needing our presence to be able to be honest about what we are avoiding to feel. And when we are honest about that, that's when we make space to feel what is needing to be felt. We also, when we are with ourselves in the moment of judgment, we are also empathizing with that part of ourselves that, because it doesn't want to feel pain, it judges, it defends itself. And of course, this process keeps us in the loop as long as we're not willing to meet us there. So by meeting ourselves again and again, by wanting now to judge our specific person, our twin flame, we're actually integrating that shadow aspect of projected shadow. So we see them running away. Meanwhile, we're telling them to go away because we're telling them they're wrong, they're bad, they're not good enough. And they're saying, you're right, I shouldn't come. We're triggering their unworthiness wound. So meeting ourselves within that loop of judgment creates that safety for our inner child to also be allowed to feel what needs to be felt. And as we're meeting our inner child again and again in those painful states, right, of resisting abandonment, resisting rejection, we are here for our inner child again and again. In the moment we're judging, we're actually also being here for inner child. And this is the fastest way to actually shift this whole dynamic of runner and chaser around. This is the only way to allow the avoidant dynamic, instead of wanting them to change, to heal us, to help us mirror back to us what we're doing to ourselves. And I'll explain to you what I mean by this. So there are two voices within us. One is of the inner child that's feeling abandoned and rejected, and the other one is of our inner judge, our inner critic. And what happens is, because our inner child doesn't want to feel abandoned or rejected, it actually wants love, right? And wants to avoid pain. And instead, what happens to it, it gets hurt and it's not loved by anyone on our outer world. Specifically, not from our specific person, our twin flame. Now, because this process is very painful, because we're not giving it the love, right? So it's going to have to find a way to meet its needs elsewhere, even if it's not getting them met, right? Since we're not doing the work, it's going to be looking outwards. Now, that's the one dynamic, that's the one voice. The other dynamic, the other voice is the inner critic, the inner judge. It's supposed to be an adult, a protector, right? But because they are wanting to desperately control the situation, the inner judge, inner critic is judging them as being wrong because of what is happening inside. But they're not only judging them, they're also judging the inner child. So the inner critic, our inner judge is judging our inner child for having needs, for having feelings, and for wanting love and not wanting pain. And instead of empathizing and becoming that protector, that safety, that presence for our inner child, it's saying, stop. Don't feel this. Don't feel that. I don't want anything to do with you. I don't want you to be wanting things. And why is our inner judge trying to protect us? Because our inner judge is also trying to escape pain and create the a state where there is the absence actually of pain, and it's trying to do that by blaming and shaming our inner child. So if you go into the inner critic and inner judge and you allow this judge, this critic, to talk to you and have a conversation with you, and you can ask questions. Why are you trying to shame me and blame me? Referring to the inner child. Why are you making this wrong? Why are you making wanting our specific person wrong? Why should I cut them out? Why should I not care about them? Because that's what the inner judge is saying. And the inner critic is saying this person is wrong for you. It doesn't matter if you feel a connection. Cut him out or cut her out or cut them out. It's trying to actually, in a really wrong way, to protect us. And it's actually wanting to have our needs met, but in a very dysfunctional way. So now, if we are aware of the dynamics we're playing with our specific person, our twin flame, we will see that we're embodying the dynamics of myself, shifting into the inner child, and my specific person, my twin flame, shifting into the inner judge, our inner critic. And we're playing this loop between us so that we can wake up to this loop that we're playing. They're dismissive, they're avoidant, they're neglectful, just as my inner judge within is to my inner child. And until I wake up to my inner judge, my inner critic, and take this responsibility to actually connect with that voice, hear it, and empathize with it, I need to project this dynamic on the outer world, making them the villain. Because look at this. My inner child wanted a savior. They didn't actualize, they didn't embody this potential of perhaps finally being my savior. We gave up, the dynamic shifted, and now my specific person, my twin flame, became the villain of the narrative. So in the drama triangle, the trauma triangle, we're always playing the role of the victim and projecting the role of the savior and or victim and or villain on our specific person until we heal this loop. So until you find that avoidance within, which is dismissiveness, which is neglect, right? Which is judgment, because our inner critic is the avoidant to our inner child. Once we hear those voices, we connect to both, because they're both right. They're both avoiding pain. They're both reactive to pain. They both want love and safety. But they're not actually, it's like an inner war that's playing out. Once we find this dynamic within, we're able to reverse the game, take accountability, and stop projecting all our shadow on our specific person, our twin flame. And this is how we heal through them being avoidant, them being runners.